Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of Hidden Tracks. Today I am blessed to have Eleanor Grace from the band Ever Elsewhere out of Ontario. Eleanor, welcome to the show.
Hey Shane, thank you so much for having me and for inviting the band on the podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure, seeing as unless you go on to do something more, don't know when we'll get to talk again, but I do have to say I'm a deep diver into Bandcamp and Spotify, and I go down every rabbit hole to find everything that's great. And I heard one of your songs, The Truth, and that was it for me. I was hook, line, and sinker all in on the band. So I want to thank you for that song.
Dude, thank you so much for the kind words. Are you kidding me? You don't have to thank me. I'm really, really glad that it grabbed you like that and that it led you to the rest of our tunes and now to you and me chatting here.
Yeah, well, this is awesome. And I'm so happy that you're here and we get to chat. So let's get right into everything that's going on currently with you guys. You guys got some new music coming out. You just dropped a song back in February called Santa Cruz. We got some more stuff coming out from you guys. So why don't you expand on that for me a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a collection of singles that's going to be coming out this year. And the reason that we decided to do it like this is that we kind of had everything set in motion to follow up our previous 2018 EP, The Homes We've Known. And we feel like, and that's the EP that The Truth is on. And we felt just like so satisfied with what we had done on that EP that we felt like the bar was really high for what we did next. And we kind of had everything mapped out. And then, of course, COVID reared its ugly head and everything sort of fell apart. And we ended up deciding that we were going to actually bring the band to a close after we did the songs that we wanted to do next, because we really wanted to just end things on a high note and really kind of, hit that bar that we felt we had set for ourselves. So we recorded this batch of songs and we figured the best way that we could enjoy the rest of the time that we had together would be to let people have, just a little bit of a taste at a time. We could kind of spend 2021 putting those new songs out one at a time in a way that, rather than hitting everyone with everything all at once, it'd be more fun to spread it out. And especially since we can't play shows just yet, we figured that would be just like a way to really make the most of the time that we have. So our next single, I can give you just a teensy little bit of a preview. Our next single is going to be like a really upbeat, kind of classic pop punk feel in the style of The Truth. And then we have 2 other songs coming out after that really kind of branch out into sounds that we haven't done as much before. So we really want to do as much as we possibly can with the music that we have left for the time that we still have together.
Well, we appreciate you giving us that slow drip of music coming out. That's a question that I'd like to ask too, and I've been asking it a lot recently lately, me being an old guy in the scene. And, I use the term old guy loosely because I look in the mirror and I think I'm 18 years old, but I'm not. And we're in that world of singles. We have honestly reached that to the point where here's a single every other month from a band, and it's getting more so away from here's an EP with 4 to 8 songs, or here's a full album with 12 to 14 songs. When you guys were deciding and coming together as a band, were you ready for that game, or was it you just wanted to, here's some awesome songs we made, here's our EP, and this is what we're doing? Or were you making conscious effort to kind of what you're doing now, do the slow drip of here's a single and then here's another single?
Well, when we first started out, we kind of just had a collection of songs that me and our guitarist Henry had been working on, and before the other guys came on board, we didn't even really know what we were going to do with those songs. So it kind of once the band actually came together, at first it was a practical decision, like how can we let people hear us as soon as possible. So we decided to do a 2-song EP, kind of show two sides of the coin that is Ever Elsewhere. And then with The Homes We've Known, it just felt like the most cohesive collection of songs that we had at the time. But we definitely have been very, influenced by what is practical for a band at our level, both what is practical for us as, something that we're self-funding as a passion project. It's very expensive to do a full length, but also in terms of what people are going to get the most enjoyment out of as an audience, because, I'm kind of an old guy in that way too, where I'm always going to be a really big album listener. I know, the younger generation are raised on singles, so it just might not be how they even prefer to listen to music. But me, I'm an album guy, so it's what I'm always thinking about. But you have to think about what people are actually going to get the most enjoyment out of. Just because I love a full length doesn't mean that is what the average Ever Elsewhere fan is going to enjoy the most. So from a practical perspective for us, but also from a practical perspective for our audience, we've always been very aware that, keeping things bite-sized is just a little bit preferential for practical reasons.
Yeah. And the whole single game, and the way I try to equate it, and I try to think back to the days when I grew up, and I guess I really did grow up on a singles world, because it was MTV, and it was what was on the radio, and you only got that one song. So I guess I lived in a different version of that singles world, but I never had that opportunity to just listen to that single, because I had to buy the whole album, and then I would find out more about it, and more about what was going on. And that's where I feel, this is how I feel as a person nowadays, is I like the single formula, but I also hate it because of the fact that someone could put something out, listen to the first 30 seconds and be like, yeah, no, and never want to listen to that band again, where I feel it's a detriment to great bands, to people that have put their soul into it. And I've said it many times that when you write a song, you're putting your heart and soul and everything you have into that song. And for someone to listen to 15 seconds and be like, yeah, I don't like the guitar lead in on this, and I'm done. And never even think to look you guys up again. That's where I start to get like upset. And that's why I go through my deep rabbit holes and just find stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I'd never listen to one song from a band. I just don't do it, because I've found bands that every single song they've ever recorded, like, here's 10 songs, every one, I'm like, is this a different band? But it's still awesome. It's just different. And that's where I think people start to lose faith in that single formula as well. It's like, well, yeah, okay, maybe I'm done with them. And that's where I even
have
feel bad
had
for
that
bands.
experience myself, where I feel like there have been artists that I didn't give a proper chance to based on one song that I heard from them. I maybe didn't fuck with that song, but sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Let's let her rip. Or maybe I didn't fuck with this one first song that I heard from them, and then a year later I realized that I actually really like this band. I just didn't hear the right song first. So it's something I'm guilty of as well. I think just because all of our attention spans are so thin these days, I have to remind myself that, you might not be hearing the thing that is going to appeal to you the most. But one thing that we try to do with our music for sure is even when we change up the overall sound of the song, there's always like that sort of a consistent Ever Elsewhere energy to it. And one of the things that I really love about these new singles that we're doing is each song is very different, but it all still feels like us. So my hope is that, given that we are living in a singles driven music climate, hopefully we can give people just a little bit of a taste of something different every time, and hopefully have something that'll pull them in each time, even if it's a little different than what might pull them in with the last song.
Okay. Good formula. So I want to find out about Eleanor a little bit. I want to know, this is where I really like to figure out what it is about a person that drives them. And it starts with your first musical memory. And it's not the musical memory that I want that you grew up with Barney sing-alongs and
How'd you know I love Barney's?
Cartoon theme songs. Well, I mean, everybody at some point probably did. But the first time you heard something that was different than Barney and Sesame Street and cartoon theme songs, that the first time you heard a real song by a real musician that you just stuck in your head at a young age that said, wow, what is this and how do I get more of it? Do you remember that?
I do, actually. For me, I was in the 3rd grade and I heard Blink-182 for the first time. I think that probably, a lot of people our age have this memory of Blink specifically because they are just such a powerful like introduction into the whole world of pop punk, because it was not something that I'd ever heard before. I remember my dad's goddaughter was visiting from England, and she had this little like mixtape that she had recorded that she would play in car rides. We're like showing her around Ontario, like the CN Tower, stuff like that. And Aliens Exist was one of the songs that she had on this little mixtape she had made. And I was just instantly obsessed with the song. I don't think my dad liked it very much, but I was always making him rewind that part of the tape. And I just became obsessed. And I moved later that year, and the first friend that I made at my new school, his favorite band was Blink-182. So he showed me a bunch of their other stuff and showed me like Sum 41. And then it wasn't for another few years that I would get into other pop punk bands and start to discover more music on my own, like stuff that wasn't being shown to me by someone else. But I will never forget hearing Aliens Exist by Blink-182 for the first time, and knowing that kind of laid the groundwork for really all of my musical interests that would come later in life. Like that was really the foundation of it all for me.
Yeah, you said you were in 3rd grade. I was, I think I had just gotten out of the military when Blink first came about.
Oh, wow.
And I still have my first album. Well, yeah, it's a special kind of war. But I still have my first Blink album where they were just called Blink before they added the 182, the Cheshire Cat.
Oh, wow. That is truly vintage.
Yeah, that's how old I am. Yeah, just like me. So when you heard that and it changed something in you, did it immediately change music moving forward for you? Did you immediately say, okay, I need to find, more of that? You brought up Sum 41 that someone started to show you, and was your progression along that same line as you continue to age?
It wasn't immediate, but it definitely sort of like sowed the seeds, as it were, for like the other music that I would find myself drawn to. Because when you're in the 3rd grade, and especially, I am a little younger than you, but this was really before like any of us had the internet at home. This was before, MySpace, which is where I discovered most of my music that I was finding on my own. It was before even I was allowed to go to like the CD store in the mall and see what kind of jumped out to me. So, at that young, I really wasn't listening to a lot of music on my own other than, CDs that this elementary school friend would play for me. And other than that, I was mostly just, listening to like the radio in the car with my dad and doing whatever else I was doing in elementary school. But in middle school is when I really started to discover music on my own. And I was in the 6th grade and saw an Avril Lavigne music video on Much Music and was absolutely taken buy that and got like an Avril Lavigne CD from the library. And then, found Linkin Park, who I think are, not pop punk, but another formative band for anyone who's into that sort of angsty and, power chord driven sound. And then in like the 7th grade is when I started to really go down the rabbit hole of finding bands like Taking Back Sunday and Dashboard Confessional and The Used and those other bands that were like really, really formative for me. And the things that I was so drawn to in those bands was definitely the same thing that I loved about Blink. Obviously at a young age, it does seem super edgy to have that, big in your face distorted guitar and the huge drums and, swearing and all that stuff your parents don't like. But there's also like just these massive pop hooks. And, obviously these are huge artists who are working with huge producers. So it's really shiny and glossy. And it's just like, honestly, it was like candy to me as a kid. And I think even though it took a couple years for me to get from hearing Blink for the first time to setting out and discovering other bands on my own, it's definitely the same sort of sounds that were appealing to me in it. That kind of matchup of, huge pop hooks with like the more aggressive in your face punk influence.
Yeah. And you brought up Dashboard, which is for me one of those pivotal things that changed my feeling about what I guess the edgier punk rock, emo, indie rock could actually be. Because when the Swiss Army Romance came out, and I didn't know what it was, and it was on Vagrant Records, and my favorite band at the time, Face to Face, it was a huge punk band, is on Vagrant, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to check this out. And then I listened to it, and I'm like, what? Why is this on Vagrant? Which is Vagrant was just a huge punk rock label, and I'm like, what is going on with this? And I was listening to it the whole way home, and I was like, holy shit, I think I found a different form of enjoying music. Like I wasn't prepared for what that was. And then I was like, and then it hits me. And again, the internet was still in its infancy. And, it was 2000, I think, when that came out. And I was like, this guy's voice sounds so familiar. Where is he from? And then I start going through like every CD I have. I'm like, I know I've heard it before. And then I find Further Seems Forever. Yeah. And I was like, and I'm listening. I'm like, this is where he's from. I'm like, and that album, the Further Seems Forever album, the first one was just pivotal in my, I guess I can, and I hate the fucking word, but it was pivotal in my emo life to just start going down that rabbit hole. Besides Sunny Day Real Estate, who are the godfathers of emo to me, that was another one that just completely changed me and said, oh, this is what it could be. And unfortunately, last year, it was the very last show I was at before the virus hit, was Dashboard Confessional.
Wow. Yeah, I remember he was finally touring acoustic again. That was the 20th anniversary tour, right? I think he did it full band in the States, but in Canada, he was going to do acoustic performances, which is very exciting for me because most of the times I've seen Dashboard, it has been full band. But to me, the really classic, Chris Carrabba sound is him on the Swiss Army Romance, just him and a guitar and the whole room singing along. And that was one of the first shows that was canceled and not rescheduled that made me think like, oh, this thing is gonna last for a while.
Yeah, this is real. Yeah, it was nice for me because I got for the VIP, you had an hour before where it was just Chris with his acoustic guitar on stage, which is what I wanted.
Totally.
And then he did the full band afterward, where after a while in a small venue at like Webster Hall in New York City, it turns into just really bad karaoke with everyone around you because like he steps away from the mic and everyone's singing. And then I start to get, 40 minutes into it, I'm like, yeah, I can't. I wanted to see the band perform, and I can't deal with this anymore. I have 20,000 people around me, not that many. It was Webster Hall, so I think it's like 1,200, but like screaming at the top of their lungs. And I'm like, I came here to watch him perform, not you guys. So I'm gonna check out. And then unfortunately, on my way home, they're like, okay, New York City's closed for the next month. I'm like, uh-oh.
You're like,
I guess
shit,
this
that
is
was all
real.
I got. You're
Yep.
like, man, I might have stayed a little longer if I realized it was going to be the last time that I saw live music for over a year.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely weird. I actually put on a concert in my backyard with my friend's band in August, a socially distanced, or was it no, October, because I was like, I'm missing live music. You guys just dropped a new album. How about we do a socially distanced concert in my backyard? And
Nice.
that's what we did. And I was like, okay, live music. So,
That's so
but
sick.
yeah, I'm edging. Yeah, I can't wait for. I mean, I bought my first tickets that are out until September for Furnace Fest in Alabama. So I'm
Sick.
hoping
Unbelievable
that
lineup.
by end of, but yeah, unbelievable lineup, like crazy. That I was just like, yeah, there's no way I'm not going to this and make sure that that's my first real thing to see. So fingers crossed, end of September, I'll still be there. So how did you get into playing music? What was your first form of an instrument for you to start playing music?
I think I always was kind of, one of those kids that like banged on pots and pans when I was younger. The first instrument that I started playing was actually the violin, which is a very sophisticated first instrument, especially compared to the fact that I ended up playing drums, which is literally hitting things with sticks. Definitely could
It's a
not
complete
play.
opposite.
Yeah, they're the two most polar opposite instruments, and I definitely would not be able to play violin again. But my parents played a lot of classical music around the house growing up, and so that's really what I was raised on was, Vivaldi and Tchaikovsky and Beethoven. So I was listening to a lot of classical music for an elementary schooler, and I just told my parents, I really want to play the violin. And there was a violin program at my, like an after school program at my school. So you like rented a violin, and it had little stickers on it to show you where to put your little child fingers. And yeah, so I played violin for a couple years, and the next year, I told my parents I wanted to start taking piano lessons. So again, very influenced by the fact that I was listening to a lot of classical music. And then a few years later was when I started like wanting to play guitar and drums, because I started listening to bands, and I was like, oh, this seems way more fun. I still play a bit of piano. Definitely would not be able to play violin. If you handed one to me, I would make an awful, awful squawking sound. But yeah, and I was lucky to have a funded music program at school where I could play drums in my music class, and play in the little sixth or seventh grade jazz band, whatever it was, and have these like rented instruments available to me. I was super, super lucky. And when I was a kid and an early teenager, I was very much like wanting to get my hands on everything I could play, and just had this real musical curiosity that I was always like wanting to try out new stuff.
That's awesome. So when you were learning all that, were you ever foreseeing yourself? Was it were you doing that to potentially one day be in an awesome band like Ever Elsewhere, or were you just doing it out of curiosity?
I mean, I think as a kid, because I was very musical and very interested in music, I kind of had an idea that I might end up doing music on some level when I was, quote unquote, grown up. But I don't really think I had like a clear sense of what that looked like. And I definitely didn't imagine myself like being in a band like Ever Elsewhere. And specifically, like Ever Elsewhere, because we make the exact kind of music that I loved listening to in middle school and high school. And a lot of that is on the strength of the songwriting of my bandmates, and it just feels like such an unbelievable privilege to get to like play these songs that are something that I know if I had found it at like the HMV or on Pure Volume when I was in 8th, 9th grade, I would have been so hype on that band. And so it's really fucking cool that I get to be in a band like that now. But it's not something that I would have imagined for myself. And even when I was a young kid, I was never like, I'm going to grow up and be a classical musician. I just knew that like music was the main thing that I liked, and that I wanted to do something in that general sphere on some level when I was older. And these days, being in a band as a passion project and playing music purely as like a creative outlet and not trying to do it as a career is honestly like the coolest thing in the world, because it takes off the pressure of it having like being this big life dominating professional obligation, and lets you kind of do it at this level where it's purely for the love of it and purely for the passion of it. And, you know, me and Henry, our guitarist, have played music together since high school. And I don't think we ever would have imagined ourselves being in a band like this, but we always kind of knew that we would always, you know, play music together for fun, even if it was just like sitting on the porch.
So is this your first ever full ensemble band, or did you have something else that was cool that you were in high school playing at your local talent shows?
This is actually my first ensemble band. All of the other guys have been in other bands before, but I had a little solo project in high school that was actually named after that Dash for Confessional record. I called myself the Swiss Army Romance, which is just a terrible idea for a number of reasons. Searchability being the first one, but that was like my high school solo project, and I got to kind of dip my toe into the world of you know, playing shows and recording. But it was definitely a very different experience than being in a band, and I've had a lot of firsts with this band, especially, you know, playing drums. You know, I played drums live with a band for the first time ever at our first show. So it's been a lot of firsts for me. That high school solo project gave me a little bit of a warm up, but a lot of it has been a new world for me with this band.
When was the first time that you performed in front of, as a musician with any of your music, in front of people that weren't your family?
Well, as a kid in elementary school, you know, my little violin after school program, we would do little concerts for, I think, mostly an audience of people's parents. But that was my first time, you know, playing in front of an audience, and that was, yeah, it's very scary. My first time kind of doing it in front of really like a room of strangers, like it's not associated with anything with school, would have been my first show with my little acoustic project in high school. And I was, I think 14 at the time. I remember my legs shaking the entire set. I think that I played the whole thing with my eyes closed or just staring down at the guitar. I was so scared. I'd never been more afraid in my life than that show. And I'll never forget like the release of finishing that set and, you know, being like, I made it. Oh my gosh, what a rush, what a relief.
So that first performance, yes, I understand that feeling of you're nervous and excited and you don't know what's going on, and it's almost like the scene in Old School when Will Ferrell blacks out and just gives an amazing debate speech, and you know you come to and it's over and it was like you did great, but you still feel like I don't even know. Did you at that moment say, okay, I can do this again? Or was it one of those things where I've talked to people and they're like, I was so scared it took me another 2 years before I could do it again?
I think I knew that nothing would ever be as scary ever again. I wasn't immediately like, I have to do this, you know, every week forever. But I definitely, once I had the relief of having the first set over with and realizing I could do it, and I made it through, and it was super fun. Once you know the non-scary parts of it, I definitely was itching to do it again. And I played quite a bit locally as just like a high schooler, playing here and there. It's how Henry and I met for the first time. I think a couple of the other guys met each other for the first time playing local shows with their high school bands. So yeah, it was definitely something that after the initial rush of fear, there was a lot of adrenaline and excitement and like, okay, I can do that again. And I want to do that again.
That's awesome. Good for you. Thank you.
You're so welcome, man.
So How did you guys, I mean, you and Henry were playing together for a while. How did the entire band come together? Is it a long drawn out story that we need 4 hours for, or is it, just meeting through other shows and seeing people? How did Ever Elsewhere form as such a, to me, an amazing passion project that, I mean, there's not one song that I've heard that I would ever turn off. So how did you as artists come together and say, this is what we want to do?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much. Like, that's definitely the goal with us. We're trying to make sure no one ever does any skips, especially because we don't have that many songs. So hopefully no one's skipping any of them. But it's a bit of a story. Thankfully, not 4 hours long, but it did take a bit to come together. So Henry was just sending me these songs that he'd been working on, and I was like, dude, these are incredible. We have to do something with them. I had been playing drums very, very casually up until that point, but when he sent me the first demos of what would become Ever Elsewhere, I was like, we absolutely have to do something with this. So he and I were just working on those songs for a little bit, and he brought on board Mike, our other guitarist, and Jamie, our bassist, and the three of them had been in different bands together over the years. So they already had a really good musical chemistry. I knew Mike and Jamie already from just, socially and through their other bands. So the first time that the four of us ever played together, there was sort of this instant chemistry, just this instant locking in that I think really, really shocked us. It definitely shocked me, especially being, my first band experience. I jammed with people before, but jamming with people is always kind of loosey-goosey and a little messy, and you're just, trying to figure things out. But I will always remember the first time the four of us played together. There was just this instant locking in that we all just kind of looked at each other and were like, okay, there's something here. And then it became a quest to find a singer. And this was a really crucial piece of the puzzle because, the singer is the face of the band, both physically and audibly. It's the main thing that most people hear. And we knew that we would not be satisfied with just getting like one of our friends to sing on it, or with, Mike or I singing, because Mike and I both also sing in the band, but we knew we really wanted someone who had like an incredible, someone to be a dedicated singer who had like an incredible voice, incredible presence, who could really be the main focus. And we had kind of exhausted everyone that we knew. I had gotten to the point where I was starting to reach out to people in like local bands we had listened to growing up, being like, maybe they would be interested. And we weren't really getting any bites, but we knew that we could not settle or cut corners. And I ended up actually going through like something like 42 pages on Bandcamp. So like 10 or 20 results a page. All of the results for Toronto acoustic. Because my kind of idea was maybe we can find a solo artist on here who might be interested in joining our band. Because at this point, we didn't know anybody who was available. And that is how we ended up finding Brennan. He had this old solo EP that he had put out in 2013 that I later found out he thought he had deleted, but he hadn't. So thank God it was still up. And I listened to the first song on the EP, or the first song that he had up, and I was like, oh, this is the guy. Like this, his voice, his writing, I was like, we have to find a way to work with this man. So we ended up connecting with him through some mutual friends. And he was like, yeah, sure. Like these songs sound cool. Like, I don't know what, basically level of availability I have for a band right now, but the songs are really cool. Let's try jamming sometime. Let's, play some Death Cab and see what happens. So he came to one of our band practices. By then the four of us were practicing semi-regularly together because we knew that we wanted to do something with these songs. And yeah, Brennan came to practice. He improv'd over some of the songs that we had, and we played some Death Cab covers, and we just really vibed. Like we connected with him as people immediately, and he had a great voice, and we just really enjoyed the way that we played together. And we went out for pizza after, and we were like, so man, how you feeling? And he was like, I think I'm in. And that's the story of why you should never ever delete your old recordings from Bandcamp, even if you don't think they're good. your dream band could be out there waiting for you, just waiting to creepily find you in a desperate search for a singer.
That's an awesome story. I've said it here many a times. Don't delete anything. Don't get rid of anything. Don't throw away any songs, because it doesn't take up space. And whether or not you think it's good, it's not for you to decide. Yes, you're the creator, but it's not for you to decide what's good and what's not. It's for everyone else out there listening to decide.
Totally. And like, we heard something in that song by Brennan that, to date is one of my favorite things he's written. I don't think he really thought much of it. And again, he thought he had deleted it, but we all heard that song and we're like, there is something so special here. And that was the catalyst for everything else that we've done together as a band. So yeah, you really don't ever know how what you put out there is going to connect with other people.
Exactly. My famous saying, it only takes one song.
Exactly.
That's it. Exactly. It only takes one song to changes a life. It could save a life. It really could. And you don't know that. And people aren't going to tell you, but don't ever get rid of something, because it could hit someone when they desperately need it.
Amen.
So we've been talking about some bands that you listen to and growing up to. I'm going to ask you a really, it's a terrible question, and I love asking it because it is a terrible question because it's so hard to answer. But it comes down to, do you have a favorite band? And for me, a favorite band is something that when you don't know what you want to listen to, you constantly go back to it because you know you're never going to be disappointed.
I have two favorite bands, and they kind of capture like the full spectrum of all the music that I like to listen to. So my all-time number one forever favorite band is Thursday. That is the most important band in the world to me, but their music is very, very intense. It's very emotional. And although I can always throw on a Thursday record and know that I'll enjoy it, sometimes it's just too, because it is so intense, it can be too much for me sometimes. So my other favorite band that is so beloved to me, and is very much on the opposite end of the spectrum musically in terms of softness and just being gentle, is Copeland. I love both of those bands so much, but Copeland is definitely the band that is easier for me to just throw on no matter what mood I'm in and know that, there's going to be something that carries me away. Thursday can sometimes carry me away to a place that is too intense and too emotional. So Copeland is a little bit more gentle on just the average day for me.
Yeah. And Thursday, it's funny. So I'm from New Jersey, and
oh, nice.
Back in the late 90s, New Brunswick, where Rutgers University is, had such a music scene where so many bands came out of there that to this day, I still constantly say, I'm like, I don't understand how they're not the Foo Fighters, how they're not as big as the Foo Fighters are. Like there were so many bands of that era. One of my best friends' band came out of that area, and just so amazing that a small little college town in New Jersey put out such amazing bands in a short period of time too. It was literally like, so I think Thursday formed in like, I want to say 97.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And my buddy's band, same time, another band, Penfold, which is just an amazing post-hardcore emo band, just put out one of, another thing where I get mad at is there's bands, they put out one album and it's like the most game-changing album of all time, and then they're no longer a band, and it sucks as a fan. But that was another band that did it. And then you had Taking Back Sunday. You just had so many bands out of that area that I was just like, this is crazy. What is going on in New Brunswick? What are they putting in the water? What are these kids learning down in Rutgers that are forming these amazing bands?
Yeah, literally at that one house too, that everyone, was playing those basement shows in. It's like, what is in the wiring at this house? How do I supercharge myself with it?
Yeah, I've seen them in a basement, in a dirty, dungy basement in New Brunswick. I've seen Thursday play that show, and with like 18 of us in there, cramped crazy, and you're just like, What is happening right now?
Wow.
Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to think how far bands get to out of that basement to be able to play. And they opened for, I forget who they opened for, but they opened for a band in Madison Square Garden. So you were playing a basement for 18 people, and then you're opening at like it's crazy. My Chemical Romance was another one out of that area. So like there were some crazy bands that came out
arenas at their heyday. I remember Thursday was going to open for them on or I can't remember the difference between arenas or stadiums, but big rooms. My Chem was coming through Toronto in like 2006, and they were playing what was called the Air Canada Centre there, which is like one of the biggest venues in Toronto. It's like a 20,000 cap room, and Thursday was supposed to open for them, and that would have just been like the craziest thing ever. They ended up dropping the tour. I can't remember why, but yeah, just the idea that like both of those bands started in that same like dingy basement in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And then next thing you know, 20,000 cap rooms in another country. It's just insane.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. That's the thing too. Like I remember at one point, Dashboard got huge.
Massive.
I think it was the Spider-Man soundtrack that totally broke them. But
that's another
they
one
were
of
coming
my
through, and my buddy's
early,
like, dude, let's go.
That's another one of my like very formative musical memories that I'll never forget. It was hearing, like, literally going to see Spider-Man 2 in theaters, and like we all got up to leave, and Vindicated started playing, and I remember like dropping like dead still in the aisle and like turning back to the screen and being like, I have to stay and listen to this song, because I know for people a few years older than me, they were already familiar with Dashboard through other cooler things, but I think that I'm pretty sure that was my first time hearing Dashboard, or at least like being aware that I was listening to Dashboard, and I was just so completely taken, just dropped dead in my tracks by that song. So yeah, definitely they were getting to be absolutely massive, and I think Dashboard played Madison Square Garden as well. Just wild.
Yeah, and they played, and that was the thing. My buddy's like, hey, Dashboard's coming, and they're playing the Barclays Center, which was this huge new arena in Brooklyn, New York, and where the Nets play, the Nets play there. And I was like, wow, dude, I'm not going to see Dashboard in like a 35,000 seat arena. I saw a Dashboard at Maxwell's in Hoboken that only had 150 people out in the room. Like, I'm not paying that money to go see Dashboard.
Yeah.
And totally. Then it was just like, I couldn't believe it. And there's so many bands that I've been especially the area that I'm in, I've been so blessed in my life to be able to see some of my favorite bands who did blow up play in these amazing intimate venues that they could still rock out in, but it's, 700 people. And I've always said that, that in a venue that small, when it's sold out, everyone's there for the same reason. There's nobody that just walked in off the street and said, oh, there's a band playing tonight, let me go check it out. It's everyone's there for the same reason. So it's just a different presence and a different time you're having at a show like that when it's that small.
Yeah, absolutely. The connection that you have with the artist and with the people around you is just like unmatchable.
Definitely. So here, my next question is going to be, is there something that you listen to that someone would be surprised that you really enjoy listening to? We call it guilty pleasures. Do you like to listen to BTS? Do you like, is there something that someone would be like, wait, you listen to that? Is there anything in your arsenal that you can come up with?
Yeah, I think people are really surprised to find out that I'm obsessed with Ariana Grande. My whole band loves Ariana. I always warm up to her record. I know Brennan loved the record too, I think, until he had to listen to me warm up to it on every drive. But I'm pretty sure she was my number one most streamed artist on Spotify last year. It's not even a guilty pleasure at this point. Like, her songs fuck. It's super easy to listen to. And I think that all of us are really like past the point in our lives where we hesitate to say that pop music is good. Like, no, pop music is sugar for your ears. And Ariana is like an amazing vocalist. I think her songs are really good. I didn't love the last record so much, but Thank You Next is like one of my all-time favorite pop records. It like just slaps from front to back. So yeah, I think people are often surprised to find out that I love Ariana and I really fuck with her music, but that would probably be the ultimate one for me.
That's a great answer. I love it. I love what, like, for me, that's out of left field for someone that's in a band like you, and that's what I like. You know, I like the honesty. Listen, I'm at the point in my life I don't give a shit what anybody says when I listen to it. I don't care. It's mine. I own it. But there is sometimes something where somebody's like, "You like this?" and my first reaction is a little bit of nervousness, but then I go, hell yeah, well, fuck you. What, you don't like it? Like, you're stupid. So, you know, let me like what I like.
Totally.
So I don't want to keep you here forever. So I would like to know what your future, if you have a crystal ball, what does your future hold in creating music moving forward?
Oh, wow. Well, that is really the thing that is a big question mark right now, because we're just really not sure what's going to happen after the doors close on this band. And, you know, in a way, we are kind of in this really lucky position right now where we can kind of put off thinking about it. You know, me and the guys are all very aware that we're in the final chapter, but it's so much easier to embrace that when we know that we still have time together. We still, like, no matter what happens afterwards, we still got these 3 songs that are coming out. We're still definitely going to make sure that we play some farewell shows, hopefully visit some of our favorite places before officially calling it a day, and once it's safe to be in the same room together again. So at this point, we don't even really have a timeline of when that's going to happen. That feels like the distant future to me right now, honestly, with how different it is to be in a band. But I think that no matter what, I'm always going to create music for the sake of art and for the sake of passion and just the love of it. I've definitely, you know, passed the point in my life where I have any illusions of, you know, living that like rock star dream or like making it with the band, doing music for a career. I'm really not interested in any of that, just because of like the pressure and how many amazing bands I grew up listening to who never got that big break and never got Foo Fighters massive, as you were saying. So I know for sure that I will always make music for the love of it and just for the pure, the sake of creating. And I definitely always want to make music with Henry, because he and I have, played together for so long that we just really have this very close musical connection. We're really on the same page with everything that we do. Recently, he and I have bounced around the idea of maybe writing with other people, maybe like working with other artists who we can flex our creativity in different ways, and even just do something that takes a little bit of the pressure off. Because, you know, like I was mentioning off the top, we did set the bar very high for ourselves with Ever Elsewhere, and part of the reason it took us so long to put anything else out after that EP is because we knew that whatever we did next would have to be like the best thing we'd ever done. And that honestly can create a lot of pressure, especially when you are doing something purely as a passion project. So I've been having fun just like messing around with some ideas that are more low stakes, kind of just like throwing stuff out there, not putting pressure on myself for it to be like the best thing I've ever written or the best idea I've ever, you know, come up with, but just doing something purely for the sake of getting it out there. So I really have a big question mark in my crystal ball right now, but I know that Ever Elsewhere has enough time left together that we'll get to really enjoy it. You know, I love the idea of us going away for a while and other people coming to the band in that time, finding us, and they hadn't found us when we were around. And I'd love to, you know, many years in the future, get together again for a reunion show. At this point, our farewell shows feel so distant that they may as well be reunion shows, but that'd be something that'd be cool to do in the future. But for now, what I'm really focused on is taking the pressure off and just doing something that's low stakes, just purely for the fun of it, and not worrying about, making sure that everything is the greatest thing that the band that I've been with for the last few years has ever created together.
Wow. So what would you most like Ever Elsewhere to be remembered for in the future, for when people find you? So what would you like people to remember Ever Elsewhere for?
It's a great question. I think that people really associate our band with honesty. I think that the songs themselves are really honest, really hard on sleeve. And the way that we've always presented ourselves has always just been as like 5-year pals. We're no pretension. We're just playing music because we love it. We just want to, connect with people in small rooms and not have any, ego or grand ambition with it. I think that the honesty is something that has drawn people to our band. And I think that above all else, that's what I'd really like people to remember us for. Just the sincerity, even. That's even a better word than honest, because we're a very, very sincere band. We're very earnest in everything that we do. And I think that is what people connect with in our music. And it's the thing that is most important to me in making art. So I think I really hope that people remember us as being really sincere in everything that we did.
It's awesome. That's what I'll remember you for now.
Thank you for that.
All right. So we're going to come in on our time, and we end our shows every week with our weekly threes. So I need 3 things that you're listening to right now. It could be new, it could be old, or whatever it is. It could be a audiobook, whatever it is. 3 things you're listening to right now that you'd like other people to check out.
Well, the last thing that I was really taken by was Justin Bieber's Tiny Desk session, which again, that might come out of left field for some people, but love pop music. And he's singing with a bit too much auto-tune, but his band is just unbelievable. They're these beautiful, stripped down renditions of the songs that I think just really put a different flavor on it, because pop music is obviously very, very produced, very shiny. And this really feels like, people in a room together. So I've been listening to that quite a bit. There's an Ontario band called Arm's Length, who are really, really starting to take off right now. They just put out a new EP a few weeks ago or maybe a month ago. It's really hard to say when things happen, but they put out a new EP called Everything Nice, and it is phenomenal. Shane, I would really recommend that you check it out specifically because the kids are really young, but they totally capture the feeling of early to mid 2000s, like post-hardcore. Just such raw, honest music. It's produced by the same guy who produced our EP, The Homes We've Known. So it sounds phenomenal. And I think that is without a doubt going to be the next band that just absolutely blows up in Ontario. And let me think. What else have I been listening to quite a lot lately? I'm trying to scroll through my Spotify now to see if I remember. There's some really random stuff on here. Apparently, I was recently listening to the Mulan soundtrack. We've got War All the Time by Thursday on here.
Listen, my guest last week used Mulan as well, which is very funny.
No way. Hey, it's an amazing soundtrack. One thing that is on here that I was listening to quite a bit recently is a classic local Ontario band called Sydney. Those guys were, another one of those bands that became so huge locally and just never got their big break. But to me, Foo Fighters level, like you're saying, they were just the absolute epitome of 2005 era Ontario post-hardcore. Sydney is very much the thing that got me back listening to Sydney's discography. They only put out two records, but they're both great. But I was listening to that new Arm's Length record, thinking about that golden age of local music. There's a lot of amazing Ontario bands within the sort of pop punk, post hardcore, emo sphere, and listening to Arm's Length. I'm losing my ability to speak, but listening to Arm's Length really reminded me so much of those times and sent me back down a rabbit hole of listening to my old favorite local bands and really reappreciating them. So yeah, that's a band that a lot of listeners might not have heard before if they're not from Ontario, Sydney.
All right. Awesome. I'm going to check them all out. Maybe not Justin Bieber, but I will check the other two out.
Hey, it's great arrangements.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I get it. I understand. Music is music, and Justin Bieber, I have heard some songs and I'm like, yeah, that's good. I don't know. It's something inside of me that I just burns of fire that I'm like, I can't do it, even though maybe I want to. But I was that way with a lot of people, and some things changed my mind. I was that way with Katy Perry, and then when she did her Unplugged album and covered Hackensack, I was like, oh, this bitch can fucking sing. And then I was like, I'm all in on Katy Perry.
Yeah, I was that way with Justin Bieber specifically for a long time, but everyone gives in eventually. Sometimes when the music is so catchy, you can only resist for so long. And when someone is really talented and you finally get to hear them in the right environment, like Katy Perry, Unplugged, you get to appreciate the music in an entirely different way before.
Exactly. And I think that's what it is. It's where when it's so, you talked about it with the, pop and the bubblegum pop, it's so overproduced and it's so shiny. And it's just like, I'm like, I need someone who's writing their songs. I need someone with a guitar and someone who can be a musician to be, and then I'm like, then I get to a point where I'm like, an artist is an artist, whether they're dancing and shaking their ass or, doing handstands like BTS, like, they're artists, so yeah. I got to give it up to them. And
I will state for the record that we would love for Brennan to be out there, shaking his ass and doing handstands, but he just keeps telling us no for some reason. We're gonna keep trying though. Maybe for the farewell shows.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's got to do something special, so maybe this is now the time. So my three for this week are a little weird and a little dated. I just, for some reason, got back into a lot of older stuff in my collection. My first one is the Wannadies. They were a Swedish indie rock band formed in 1988. Broke up in 2009, but they actually released something in 2020, which doesn't count as a year, but they were just, I think, so underappreciated. And if you ever want to listen to something that sounds like music that one of those stands the test of time and could be classified in any genre, even if they started in 1988, but it sounds like something you would buy today. And they're just an amazing band, and I want people to really try to check them out and give them a shot. But that's the Wannadies, Wannadies. Next one that I've been listening to is the Sundays, another thing going way back in the time machine to the 90s. Harriet Wheeler, there's something in her voice that I don't think anybody has ever been able to accomplish again when it comes to just amazing, soulful indie rock music that, everybody knows Wild Horses from, I forget what movie it was in, but I think it was a Reese Witherspoon and Mark Wahlberg movie. Wild Horses was the big hit, but everything that they ever did is amazing. Then something newer is a band called Young Culture out of Albany, New York. They're a pop punk band. I had the opportunity to see them last January, open for another band, Have Mercy, who I've talked about before. But they're really cool. They dropped their full-length album last year. Something to check out, very pop punkish. So if people need a little bit of pop punk in their life, Young Culture is the name of the band. Go check them out.
Hell yeah. Also produced by the producer who did our EP. Anton DeLoss, awesome. That guy gets around.
Yeah. Eleanor, I want to give you an opportunity to reach out, say something to your fans, tell everybody here at Hidden Tracks how to get in touch with you guys and how to find all your stuff and where to reach you.
Definitely. Well, I do have to say again, Shane, thank you so much for giving me this time to chat about the band and chat about my musical upbringing. It was super fun. Ever Elsewhere does have a bit of time left together, and we want to just make the most out of every last possible second. Help us forget that that this will all be over one day. So we have 3 more songs coming out this year. Our new single Santa Cruz is out now. It's Ever Elsewhere on Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, everywhere you get your stuff. On Twitter, we're at Ever Elsewhere. On Instagram and Facebook, we are at Ever Elsewhere Band. And if you're in the Ontario area, once it is safe for us to be together in the same room again, we will be doing some farewell shows for you. And we just hope you love what we have left for you before we call it a day.
Well, that's awesome. Everyone, it's Eleanor Grace from the band Ever Elsewhere, and get up off your ass, go listen to it, and go out and have a great time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.